Marlon would just like 10 minutes at the end for something. What was it?
For a preview on the preservation in progress.
Oh,
presentation.
so how buildings are deemed historical and what that process is. Okay, great. I'm gonna go ahead and call. Are there any other changes to the agenda? Any other? Okay, wonderful. Barrio Logan, Carmel Mountain Ranch, Carmel Valley, Encanto, City Heights, Claremont,
Thank you.
College area, Del Mar Mesa, downtown, Eastern area, Greater Golden Hills, Kearney Mesa, Kensington Talmadge,
Here.
La Jolla, Linda Vista, Midway, Mira Mesa,
Here.
Mission Beach,
Here.
Mission Valley, Navajo,
Here.
Normal Heights,
Here.
North Park, Ocean Beach is here, Old Town, Otay Mesa Nestor, Pacific Beach, Peninsula, Rancho Bernardo, Rancho Penasquitos, San Pasquale Hodges, San Ysidro,
Here.
Scripps Ranch, Sarah Mesa, Skyline Paradise Hills,
Here.
Southeastern, Tierra Santa, Torrey Hills, Torrey Pines, University,
Here.
Uptown.
Here.
Awesome. Okay, great.
What about Miramar Ranch North?
Well, we're gonna merge into the French.
Okay, thank you.
Great. So that leads us into non-agenda public comment. Do I have anyone seeking to make a non-agenda public comment today? Great. If there are more people in the audience, if you guys just want to come and line up at the front so we can get through you guys.
Good evening, Doreen Diaz, Pesta, and I am a resident of Skyline Paradise Hills Planning Group. I am in Guy's group, and I am making a request that somebody in this room add policy 624 back to the agenda. There's things on page 2 that need to be clarified, crystal clear, to say whether the bylaws apply only to incorporated planning groups that are 501(c)(3)s or whatever, or does it apply to everybody on page 2? Because there's a line about bylaws, although they switched operation. Second thing is the election section needs to be reviewed. We had election that violated every single sentence in policy 624. It violated all of the agenda. A slate was called. You're not allowed to make a slate vote for the members. There was a slate motion for the members. The chair ran in 2 positions, so that should state whether you can run for 2 positions for an officer election, which is secret. Can you run as chair and as vice chair, just in case you don't win? Both seats were opposed. This happened March 2025. The other thing that happened is the meeting started going over. Instead of stepping outside the library, the chair for the secret officer ballot that violated every single rule in Robert's rules, no ballot box. The chair was, I'll take your ballot. I'll take your ballot. Hand collected the ballots. The chair is running for vice chair and for chair. She hand collected the ballots and said she'd tally them and bring them back next month. So you're removing ballots, which are supposed to be counted in front of the public.
Thank you.
So, yes. It's going to be I'm on 9 pages of violations. It'll be longer.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a non-agenda public comment? Andrea?
I just want to remind everybody that Encanto is one of the 8 neighborhoods of Choice Valley Community Planning Group represents. But we actually named Choice Valley Community Planning Group. I know everyone here knows that, but the folks who are not.
Oh, yep. Marcella.
So we had an amazing webinar last night, and it's posted with Patrick Condon on why is housing so costly, and it is posted up on our NFABC website, Neighbors for a Better California. So I really encourage, if you really want to understand this housing supply and investment problem, it's a really good watch. His part of it is about 30 minutes, and then we go into a little bit of San Diego stuff as well after that. So it's not you don't have to invest a ton of time to watch it.
Thank you. Is there any other non-agenda public comment? Yes, Paul.
Just as an FYI, the fire safety maps have been updated on the city website. I won't go into the details, just be aware of it and check it out.
Thank you. Any other non-agenda? Yes, Guy.
Listening to the news yesterday, the city council is passing an ordinance that will require all these grocery stores that through online have a promotional thing, but it's only for people who are online. And the city council brought it up as because of that, and because we have thousands and thousands and thousands of people in San Diego who are not online, they said it disenfranchises them. And that term has stuck in my head for about 3 years. When we've moved to do all this communication in the city online, and that includes the land development code, we have disenfranchised people. We have disenfranchised, and that is something that we need to push back and say, if you're going to, especially since we're coming up with a new street design manual, that the street design manual should be given to every planning committee in the city as a hard copy. So.
Thank you, Guy. Any more non-agenda public comment?
Just a question, were we supposed to be bringing, if our planning group did a vote or some type of recommendation on the trash collection, were we supposed to be bringing that?
It's next month.
It's next month?
They pushed me off, yeah, so it's gonna be next month,
Okay,
which is
thanks.
unfortunately, I guess, after the city council votes on it, but before everyone in the city votes on it.
Okay,
So, well, not everyone in the city, everyone affected by the change.
okay, well then, if anybody wants Scripps Ranch letter that's going to our council members, I got some copies for you.
Awesome. And if you wanna email it to me.
I'll do that, I'll
Yeah.
email it to you
Awesome.
and, yeah.
Okay, anyone else? Yes,
I'm
no,
just going to elaborate on what he said, not only just online, but the article I saw in the news was you had to have a smartphone to be able to get the best pricing in the grocery stores. So that leaves, hardworking, say, poorer people that can't afford a fancy smartphone to pay higher grocery fees. I thought that was interesting.
thank you. Any more non-agenda public comment? Okay, cool. We will go ahead and approve, we have 2 sets of minutes to approve, so I will do the January ones first. Does anyone have any changes to the January minutes? Yes. Ms. Green.
The January minutes, there was lots of comments about parking and removal of parking and things like that. But one of the things we talked about was there needs to be more of a balance with the cars, because they talk about all this mobility and planning for all sorts of mobility, but they keep really not getting cars in the mix. And we talked about that as a group, and I didn't really see a comment on how cars need to be emphasized more in the overall plan.
Okay. Do you want to submit some comments to be added to the minutes?
Sure.
Or Marlon, do you?
Sure, I'll send it to you. It's
Yeah.
minor.
Yeah, just send it to Marlon and myself.
Yeah, I was the president of the January meeting, albeit late.
Anyone else, the January minutes? Okay, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve as amended with the comments that will be seen.
Thank you. That was Scripps Ranch, and then I had North Park as a second. Awesome. All right, I'll go ahead and call everyone who is here to approve the January minutes. Carmel Valley,
Abstain.
were you not here?
I was on the recovery.
All right, Encanto, Schultz Valley. Okay. Downtown,
Yes.
Eastern area, Kensington Talmadge,
Yes.
Linda Vista,
Yes.
Mira Mesa.
Approved.
Okay, sorry, I was just putting A for everyone there as approved, but that's A for abstain. Let me just go back and fix this. Oh, sorry. That was Mira Mesa, yes?
Yes.
Mission Beach.
Abstain, was not present.
Copy. Navajo,
Yes.
Normal Heights,
Yes.
North Park,
Yes.
Ocean Beach is a yes. Pacific Beach,
Yes.
Peninsula,
Yes.
Rancho Bernardo,
Yes.
Rancho Penasquitos,
Approved.
San Ysidro.
Abstain for here.
Okay. Scripps Ranch,
Yes.
Skyline Paradise Hills,
Yes.
Torrey Pines,
Yes.
University,
Yes.
Uptown.
Abstain, I wasn't here.
Copy. Thank you. Okay, so let us move on to February minutes. Did anyone, I emailed Marlon one change about Torrey Pines and Torrey Hills, so that is going to be changed in the minutes. Did anyone else see anything wrong with February minutes? Nope. All right, do I have a motion to approve? Thank you, North Park, and then I have a second. From Chris. Okay, great. I will go again. Carmel Valley,
Yes.
Encanto,
Abstain, was not here.
downtown,
Yes.
Eastern area,
Yes.
Kensington Talmadge,
Yes.
Linda Vista, Mira Mesa.
Abstain, I was absent.
Thank you. Mission Beach,
Approved.
Navajo,
On behalf of Navajo, yes.
Normal Heights,
Yes.
North Park,
Yes.
Ocean Beach is a yes. Pacific Beach, Peninsula, Rancho Bernardo,
Yes.
Rancho Penasquitos,
Abstain.
San Ysidro,
Yes.
Scripps Ranch,
Yes.
Skyline Paradise Hills,
Yes.
Torrey Pines.
I'm gonna have to abstain until I know it.
Okay, it was just, your name was under Torrey Hills.
Oh, that's right, I remember that, that's.
Yeah, okay, thank you. University
Yes.
and Uptown,
Abstain, wasn't here.
okay. Fantastic. So we can roll right along into the ADU discussion. Just put memo up. Thank you. So I know I sent out a memo, a response from Heidi. And then I got a press release from the mayor's office also backing some of the ADU changes today. It seems, I just want to run through, I guess, the big ones that are between agreement between the mayor's office and the planning department. About what the changes they want to see to the ADU. So I guess the first one is an opt-in. An opt.
Is it the update or the one that was sent to city council?
Isn't it in both of this? Yeah, okay. Yeah, can you just go down a little bit? Okay, yeah, perfect. This is exactly what we want to see. Okay, perfect. This is the memo.
Yeah, this is the memo that went first.
Yes, I don't think much changed.
No.
Just, it was kind of an update on the timeline, was what
Yes.
Heidi's letter was.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, cool. So the things that are between the planning department and the mayor's office that they seem to be in agreement on are the ability to collect opt-in DIF fees for any units under 750 square feet. Applying base zoning, so not giving any bonus FAR, bonus heights to any of the ADU programs. Looking at parking minimums for those ADUs that are outside TPAs, increase compliance and maybe getting some people out there to actually investigate those. Adequate evacuation routes for ADUs that are in high severity fire zones, or otherwise getting rid of the ADU bonus program altogether if there aren't such existing routes. This one was crazy. Apply the fire code requirements for ADUs. That's a little strange. It wasn't there before. And then getting rid of zero setbacks seems to be one they're in agreement with. So I guess I want to, going through this, I want to take public comment first, then we can close public comment, and then we can go to board discussion about how we want to move forward. I know some people emailed me about possibly putting in a working group. I think from Heidi's letter, it said they wanted to see this in June. So we certainly would have a couple of months for the working group to get together and put something before the June meeting. Ideally, we'd maybe vote on it next month. So, we can shop it around during May, but we could extend it to May as well. Is everyone okay with that plan of action? Okay, wonderful. So is there any public comment on this item? Awesome. If you guys just want to kind of line up, and then we can just if that's not too much. Awesome. Thank you. And I am going to cap you guys at 2 minutes, if you don't mind.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Doreen Diaz, Pastor still from Skyline Paradise Hills, and I have read the February 25th, and I've read the media that, other media that's been said about ADU, as well as today's Facebook post that came out from Todd Gloria. I hope people got a chance to see that. These changes will not affect the bonus ADUs in my area. None of them. If every proposed change goes, it's zero. We are RS17 with 12 units on less than a quarter of acre. The lot is 11,100 square feet and has 12 units on a 2-lane road with parking on both sides. The other issue part of that is this very high fire zone. The way it's worded is horrific. I am in between, surrounded by very high fire zone. But if my street is not very high fire zone, this doesn't apply to me, as though I can't get out. I'm trapped in the middle of fire because everybody around me, 365, are on fire. So that needs to be clarified. The other part of that is that should be no optional fees. That is bull, that should be off the question. Single-family home residential neighborhoods should not have these. They are not in violation if they do them in multi-family residential zones only. If they did them in commercial zones only, but no ADU should be in single-family homes. They are not going to do anything to benefit. We have 1-story homes. The ADUs in one part are 2-story. That they intend to build. And then in another neighborhood, they're putting 36 on this street that people don't have no parking lot.
Thank you. Jeff.
And Marlon, can you bring up this? The one thing that's not on here, that why Marilyn brings it up, is we're also proposing to have for sale ADUs as part of this.
Oh, yeah.
So if you go another one. So one of the things that we wanted to really hit on is the original motion was to repeal the bonus ADU program and RS zoning. That was Councilmember Foster's original motion. We actually went through and did an analysis of what the impact would be based on 282 projects that went through the Housing Commission, which is they record all the affordable deeds. And it turns out that it's actually fairly evenly split between RS zoning and RM and other kind of commercial zoning. So the idea that the program would have been eliminated by Councilmember Foster's motion is actually not really true according to the way the project was worked. Go to the next slide. The other part is what they did is they excluded, and it wasn't in the memo, but they excluded all the zones that have a minimum lot size of 10,000 square feet or greater, not 10,000 square foot lots or greater, but where the zoning has a minimum of 10,000 square feet. It's a lot of zones, but the two that really matter in terms of what's been used are RS1-2 and RS1-4. Historically, that accounts for 3 projects. We're talking 1% of all the ADUs that have been built. Even in Canto, where there's planned RS1-2 projects, in those cases, they're actually disqualified because one of the things we discovered through the process was that they don't actually have a viable pedestrian path of travel, which disqualifies projects. So it's good to know that the street design manual actually applies to walking through things. So minimum impact there. Go to the next slide. I think that's about it, but thank you.
Wow, good job. You look ready.
Yes, Scott Case, Uptown. I was here, I think Jeff expressed it well. I'd like to defer my time to Jeff if he has any more comments.
Well, I do have more comments, but
I can pause your time. You're at 1:48.
okay. The only other thing that I want to mention is, so the gist of it was we could have succeeded with Foster's motion. The one other sort of boogeyman that gets put out by and as part of the whole memo was this idea that our housing element would be decertified if we went to that. And there's a slide actually that talks about this. And one of the things that that's about is our housing element was certified based on some expectation of ADUs being developed, which was 41 units per year. We're achieving that 41, more than that every year, just in our RM zoning. So the idea that this somehow would have resulted in a catastrophe for San Diego is a bit debunked by the actual development that's taking place. So I think that's an important part. We have the ability to reshape the project to make it something that fits within our neighborhood footprints, and that's something that people should obviously engage with their concerns, but also in good faith. So I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have another non-agenda public comment. Yes. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Flanagan. I've lived in Lomita Village for 25 years. I love my neighborhood. It's an older neighborhood. It's got short driveways that don't fit today's longer cars, which means everybody parks on the street. And if you drive down the street and somebody happens to have a garage door open, you're not going to find a car in that garage anywhere. I think there's like 5 houses in this huge area that have cars in their garages. And I would be addressing mostly the car issue and the density issue. It just would be disastrous for my neighborhood. People would not be able to park. It would be a horrible situation if the ADUs don't have some kind of parking requirement. So thank you for your time, and we'll see what happens.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, you in the back. Oh, yeah. Well, you can go next.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Good afternoon. I'm Javier Saunders. I'm with the Peninsula Board. I'm a peer of Corliss here. And one of the reasons I was here, I was going to ask the question, and I think that Jeff answered is the city has made a big point about the repealing the ADU program would be a violation of state law. And one of the questions I was going to have for the city staff is how are all the other cities complying with state law if we're the only city that has a bonus program? So all the other cities are complying. So we haven't taken an official position yet on the Peninsula Board, but one of the things we're discussing is trying to move forward with the appeal throughout the SDA and only the TPA. So that's something I just want to throw out as something that we're considering. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir.
Hello, my name's Peter Walding and I live on 1470 Helga Street, and I'm here to support my Encanto neighbours in their fight to reduce this ADU situation, which is quite ridiculous to be being put in our area due to the fact of obviously the traffic, the infrastructure, and the ability to travel up and down the roads. It's very difficult as we speak today, just getting in and out the driveways just to get to work. And if we were impacted by these huge ADUs, none of us could get to work on time. It would just be like the freeway. And I'm just here to support everybody from Encanto trying hard to resist against the ADU program. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Can I do a public comment?
Well, you're on the board, so we'll do board comment. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that there's been a lot of research done at this point now on how increasing density does not help affordability. And there's just been a research paper done at the U.S. National Institute of Research on this. And you guys should check it out. And the problem with the density, okay, if you're trying to do affordability, is none of these are really talking about making these truly affordable. And the deed restriction of 15 years is absolutely not helpful in any way. Like 15 years goes by like that, you know, and it doesn't talk to the levels of like, we need, you know, it's a lot about the middle income. We need teachers, we need firemen. Yes, we do. We need those people. We also need servers. We need people who, you know, clean the schools. We need the paras in the classroom who help the teachers. They get paid minimum wage. Minimum wage is not going to be meeting any of the affordable levels for the bonus ADU program. So I think the bonus ADU program will not help. And I think the density buildup of San Diego is going to raise the prices, because that's what it shows. It raises the prices of all the property, and it does not make the town affordable. And it brings in investors, like these parasite investors, into the scene, not mom and pops, not individual people who don't even live in this country. So I think, you know, none of these things are really addressing some of the main issues with the housing in San Diego.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, I am going to close public comment then, and we will go to board comment. Corla, would you like to start?
Oh boy, get to be first.
And if I'm going to put you on a timer, I'm not going to cut you off, but
Okay.
if you could all.
Well, I went through, as I went through everything, I read it and I just made some bullet point notes. So the state says TPA, not SDA. So as this talks about it, I want to be sure that we're talking about TPA changes and not SDA, because we know nobody's going to walk a mile. Okay, state law says no diff fees lower than 750 square feet, but who's going to pay to opt in? I mean, is anybody crazy enough to pay if they don't have to? Just a comment. And I think this whole thing has been a big fail. When I look at the numbers, there's 3 low and 3 very low in the 2024 statistics. That's a big fail. I mean, hello. Anyway, and in the summary, it says San Diego mostly exceeds what's required by state law. That's a big fail in my mind too. So also, where are we going to get the water? Transit's not there. And I also want to be sure that when the group gets together and talks about all this, that they address what's happening in Pacific Beach with the Turquoise Tower, and somehow they're getting around the Prop D and the height. I mean, I think that what's happening, that it needs to be residential and not rentals, might help that, you know, and get rid of that project. But somehow they feel that they've gotten around regulations, and I don't want to see that happening. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Corla. Rancho Penasquitos.
Yeah, I think the parking should be addressed so that it accommodates the ADUs and the demands that go along with it. And then also I'd like to better understand how other cities, as the other gentleman mentioned, do their housing elements to achieve those.
Awesome. North Park.
Just real quick, I liked it when we had the gentleman from Ocean Beach come and speak about ADUs. You know, I lived 10, 15 years in a back house. I had a really nice landlord. He's still a friend. He charged me minimal rent. I took care of the place. I painted and did all the job and everything for low rent. I was able to save up and buy my own house. And I think that was the original idea. It isn't what's happening. And so I agree with everything that needs to be changed.
Just to echo, Linda Vista has huge concerns with the ADU program. They want to see reform. They're particularly concerned with parking and how narrow the streets are, which then feeds into issues with evacuation, fire safety, street sweeping. There are issues with setbacks and I believe in Linda Vista's mind, the program is a huge fail, as has been stated.
Thank you. Marcel, Pacific.
Yeah, I completely agree with the woman who spoke, and if you watch Patrick Condon, the webinar from last night, it talks about this, the land is now becoming a speculative market, and so it's not increasing affordability for anyone except for developers who can come in, and I said with $100,000, and then in 3 years get their $100,000 back and get another $120,000 on top of that. They're talking 2.2x returns on this kind of development, and nobody in our group who's trying to pay for housing, who's a real person, is affording this at all. So please watch that. It is so enlightening. We have a project that's in the RS17 zone, which is eliminated. In fact, 20% of RS17 zones are greater than 10,000 square feet, and so are susceptible to these apartment buildings, essentially. Us and OB have RM11, which are originally meant for duplexes, so we also have a problem with the RM11 zone. As far as getting anything passed, I think the RM11 zone may never be able to, I don't think we can fight on that issue. I've talked with Jeff about that, but certainly the RS zones are worth fighting for. That's all I got.
Thank you. Norma Heights.
Sure. I'll take a minute to describe maybe from a different perspective. I was talking with someone who is on the board of the BIA, and they referred to these ADU builds as freelancers. They're referred to as freelancers.
Oh, freelancers.
They're not serious builders. They're in here for a quick profit, and they're not adding to housing stock. The ADU program and the bonus ADU program is not putting the kind of units and numbers that they like to see. They like to see the 700 unit, 500 units go up, and that far outstrips anything that the bonus ADU program is doing. So in my opinion, the bonus ADU program creates a lot of friction for the legitimate developers.
Skyline Paradise Hills.
First thing I want to say is footnote number 7 was not written by the planning department. It was written by Development Services, which is a no-no. And the person who wrote that, and however it got in back in 2019, no longer works for the city. And I assume that found a better job somewhere else. So that's the first thing I wanted to say, that proposition was not done by the planning department, and it indicates that nobody read the final product, especially on our city council, and understood what the hell was going on. The other thing, as I'm watching this thing go on and reading the paper and reading the column that comes out every Sunday with a question to the industry and a question to executives, they're not so much in favor of this additional dwelling unit thing. And it occurs to me, why are we, and I'm not assuming it's just our city and just Southern California, why are we battling over this thing instead of going back to the Assembly and the Senate and the governor and reminding him, number one, the government's job is not to provide housing. That's it. It's not to do charity work either. So why don't we eliminate the whole ADU program? You know, those of us who took courses or went to San Diego State, we know the joke that was out there 30 years ago, and I'm sure is still out there today. When you graduate, you have to go somewhere else for a job, because we're not going to pay you enough money to buy a house in San Diego. After you make your fortune in some other part of the country or the world, you can come back here in 40 years and, you know, buy a nice house. And that's it. I mean, I'm living in a house that cost $18,000 when it was brand new, and that's 1959. On my block, just under 770. I mean, just under 800,000, 770 for the same damn house. And what's that got to do with anything except it's very desirable to live here and they can get the money for it. And yes, if you watch TV at all, you know, we've got these guys coming on every 20 minutes or so in the evening especially, we can sell your house, we can give you cash for the house, in a week, right now, And what are those people doing with those houses? They're flipping them. They discover, oh, the house that you have has a nice sized yard. We can put an ADU there. I'm reading about 3 weeks ago, I think it was, the La Jolla paper. And in there was a section, it was a full page article on an ADU being built somewhere, I think Pacific Beach, don't quote me on that. And the company that was building it, once the concrete slab is hard, they can put a house on that in a day. Because they have a factory building somewhere and it's all pre-assembled and they come in with a big flatbed and it's like putting a model house together, bang, 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 at the end of the day. Now, that's not with the plumbing and all that stuff, but the house, the house is all framed and the roof is on and everything and in a day. That's how fast they can pop that out. So.
Thank you, Guy. Sorry, I missed Torrey Pines back there. You're like right behind Marcella.
I'm right
in your track.
I'm
Okay.
right
Okay. You left your name tag, so I thought you were still there. Okay, I'll make my way to you. Mission Beach.
I'm going to talk about Mission Beach specifically. State ADU allows municipalities to exclude ADUs from certain areas, and state ADU laws recognize the superiority of the Coastal Act. The Coastal Act states that new development should maintain and enhance public access to the coast. Allowing increased density in Mission Beach is going to reduce public access to the coast, as Mission Beach is, I'm sure if any of you are down there on a weekend know, already has a severe parking deficit that impacts visitors to the beach. And this is an issue that doesn't just about Mission Beach residents. Your community, every one of your communities use Mission Beach. It's the most busy day use beach in the city. Mission Beach needs to be looked at as a separate, unique community instead of just lumping in with different RS zones. We have a PDO. Our district needs to be looked at as a separate thing. The contributional 17 ADU project at Claremont, which resulted in the council taking another look at this whole program, has a density level of 36 units per acre, which the city council thinks is too high. Mission Beach's density already is 36 units per acre. So our density is already above all of this. And the real impact of it, it isn't just to residents and people who live there, it's to all the people in the entire city, county, people from around the world who come to Mission Beach. Mission Beach should be excluded entirely from ADUs.
Great,
Thank
you. Rancho Bernardo.
Our issues are primarily with making sure there's adequate setbacks, addressing parking, and not increasing significantly the density in the wildfire areas.
Thank you. Carmel Valley.
I'm gonna have to take some of her time. We're in favor of these revisions and improvements to the bonus program because we think in some cases they're very upsetting addition to a single-family neighborhoods in San Diego. We support the city's efforts to revise it. Addressing infrastructure, it requires better definition. We feel that since all new units represent new residents, these new residents bring new impacts to the local communities, so mitigating contributions to offset these impacts need to be provided by the developers. As far as the development scale, the bonus program needs to better apply and restrict the allowable building height. We find the statement that these revisions are being pursued to, quote, ensure that the ADU density bonus homes are similar in scale as the surrounding community, as internally inconsistent with the very concept of multiple ADUs, that is, building several ADU dwellings on a single-family lot located in a single-family neighborhood. Parking is and will continue to be a major concern. We understand the state law restricts parking requirements within the TPA, but something has to be done because that kind of assumes that people within the TPA don't drive vehicles, which we don't believe. Also, the TPA is a moving target. It's based on a 20-year horizon, and you don't really know what's currently the situation as far as bus routes, et cetera. Compliance, we feel that perhaps the concept of requiring deed restrictions, especially concerning the allowable number of ADUs, the height of the ADUs, et cetera, are good and should be enforced, and non-compliance cannot be tolerated. Adequate excavation routes, evacuation routes. We need a better definition of what is adequate. My homeowner's policy where I live in Carmel Valley tripled this year, and I'm not even adjacent to any open space. My neighbors are across the street. We don't really have a good way out when evacuations occur because they occur normally all of a sudden and everybody's stuck in a parking lot on the street. For fire code, sprinklers are always been preferred and required in high-density residential projects, but they become useless in my view when there's 100 or so fire hydrants being pumped together by fire engines simultaneously, resulting in high outflow of available water from water tanks and the loss of water pressure. For instance, a 3 million gallon tank, which is a normal large city tank, trying to feed 100 fire hydrants pumping 1,500 gallons a minute, run out of water in 30 to 40 minutes. Setbacks for brush management should be required of all dwelling units, including ADUs and single-family houses. I ask that this comments be entered into the record.
Thank you. Anything else? Encanta?
So Carmel Valley was very, very thorough. I want to thank him for that and them for that. Also, I want to thank Neighbors for Better for San Diego for all of the research. Anything that's been said so far, all these reforms need to take place. It's not as if we in Choice Valley are in disagreement with any of those things, but they don't go far enough, as the colleagues here have said. Now, we have 4 main points. I think one is just a question, and maybe Marlon can answer. What does an opt-in fee mean to replace DIF fees? What exactly is that?
So, the opt-in fee would be, and I think Heidi explained it a little bit in that. So if you're gonna do ADU density bonus, you'd have to pay a fee that goes to the DIF, which pays for public facilities. So right now, the ADUs that come in aren't required to pay a DIF, so they're not paying anything in terms of infrastructure. So that opt-in would mean that they would be subject to a fee if they're going to proceed.
So it would be mandatory?
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
Well, not mandatory because it's opt-in, so if they're going to do an ADU, they have to do the fees. Yeah, well,
Yeah, the language is weird on that one, I agree.
Is he referring to the citywide diff, or will that diff money be?
Yeah, there is nothing.
Okay.
Andrea, you wanna?
Okay, yes. Second point is to the SDA versus the TPA. I mean, we're talking about San Diego with hilly areas, even with sidewalks that are not, that are ADA compliant. A mile is a long way to walk if you've got a stroller and if you've got a wheelchair. So it needs to revert back to a half mile, which I believe is TPA and not SDA. But the other major point is that it needs to not only have a clear pedestrian path of travel, it needs to be ADA compliant. And this is one of the issues that we're having even right now in Canto, where a lot of these are 2 issues in one. So the projects that have been submitted don't have a clear pedestrian path of travel, and they really should have never been accepted as an application, never. But a couple of the programs applications are full steam ahead. It looks like they're actually doing construction, even though there's no 1/2 mile, let alone 1 mile pedestrian path of travel, and there's no sidewalk, let alone it being ADA compliant. And around the city, it needs to be ADA compliant. So that's our second issue. Our third issue is, hear me out. To the degree that we want to promote affordable housing that is really we want to promote affordable housing, because what we've had so far with the ADU bonus program is that it is meeting the median income. Well, that's the issue here, right? What you need for a median income around here is just too high. So affordable would mean something that's below that. And what I understand from Neighbors for Better San Diego is that 70% of the ADU bonus units are going to low and moderate resource. Okay, so now this is where I need you to hear me out. So we think that what needs to be included in requirements is that it needs to prioritize going to the high and highest resource areas first, not to the moderate and low, because it's not doing what it's supposed to do in terms of affordability. But also, it will probably have a chilling effect because the land is way more expensive in the high and highest area. So if you've got to do it out there, you're probably not gonna, the people who are in it to make a quick buck are probably not gonna be able to do that. It'll probably have a chilling effect. But to the extent that they want to keep it going, let's not concentrate poverty. Because we already have too many people in Choice Valley, for instance, who are already distressed. So when they get those mailers that say, we'll buy your house for a little bit more than you think you could buy it normally, just putting it on the real estate market, we're more likely to take that. It's going to be bought up by some corporate investor or somebody who has a lot more money than us, and then that's generational wealth that's gone, and it's no longer a single family neighborhood. And then lastly, the grandfathering is an issue for us. So when we didn't get the moratorium, when we didn't get the stop, and they said, okay, let's send it back for a study, planning department's going to come back in 60 to 90 days. The issue came up that Council Member Campillo raised. Well, what's going to happen with the applications that are already in right now? You're going to be able to go ahead with them? And not only that, since you got 60 to 90 days, is that like a dog whistle to these investors that they can go ahead and submit their applications? And the planning department director, Heidi Von Bloom, said, well, under municipal code, yeah, you'd have to go by those. That's what the municipal code said. Now, to Council Member Campillo's credit, he said, that's concerning. And then I'm gonna toot our horn here because Council Member Campillo was the only one who raised the issues that were raised in the letter from Choice Valley's attorney, which said that vesting rights are not accrued by simply making an application. And that would not only apply to the two properties or the two projects that were under consideration under footnote 7, but for the ADU projects as well. So something to be aware in your neighborhoods, if there have already been applications submitted and these people want to say, hey, listen, they get to go ahead and proceed because they already submitted the application before council came back and made a different kind of ordinance or resolution. It's something that is questionable.
Thank you.
I think that's it.
Yeah, all I will say to that is I have complete confidence in the fact that DSD is just so incompetent that they're not reviewing these within 90 days. So hopefully we get this passed and then everyone will be in the middle of it and they'll have to correct it. Laura, Eastern area.
Last month when we talked about ADUs, I think somebody brought up the fact that we should just stay with the state law, even though there's changes going on with state law, just strictly apply state law here in San Diego, get rid of all the additionals, and I'd like to remake that recommendation. I think it's a good one. And we need to go with the state TPA definition because it appears that San Diego has increased it to a mile, but the state is still a half mile. But that's still too far because, and there's also the no parking requirement from the state. I think we need to contact our state representatives and really push back on this because this is a nightmare. It's crazy. It's not like we're getting out of our cars. Anytime, it's not within like even the next 10 years. And we already have people in neighborhoods who circle and circle and circle just to find a parking place and walk 2 blocks to where they live. Right now, without all this additional stuff. So I think we really need to go higher because the city council does have to follow state law. And the state law says that doesn't have the parking requirements, and the state law has the half-mile TPA. So I think we need to take it a little bit higher. And we've got the reps here. We can meet with them face-to-face. I think we need to push on that. And I think I had something else about, and the infrastructure. I don't know if DIF fees are something that San Diego just came up with, or if there's, additional added to from the state code. But there's a lot of cities throughout this entire state that require the DIF fees for all development. And I think we should get back to that. So that's it.
Corey Hines?
Yeah, so I have different feelings about ADUs than some of you because my first house had an ADU, only we called it a mother-in-law. It was in South Park, and it helped me make the mortgage. And I think that is a really good feature of ADUs. But the ADUs used to fit the communities, right? Like you couldn't see them they weren't like apartment buildings that you didn't know that were gonna be there, and they weren't cheap looking. And they were actually people, and I did help with housing for people who couldn't afford maybe regular rent. And I have a friend who built an ADU on her house, and she built it to rent out, and now she's living in it herself and renting as her children moved out. And on our street, we have an ADU that's lovely. It's really, part of the thing I have with this, it really is that community planning groups no longer get to look at the plans of these things to see if they're gonna fit in their communities or not. And the city just ministerially approves almost everything, it seems like. And I don't think an ADU is 10 units or 4 units, that's an apartment. And let's see, and we have had problems with no setbacks being approved, and parking is still an issue. And ADUs used as VRBOs, and probably your Mission Beach, because you're allowed to have so many VRBOs in your neighborhood. I'm assuming that's a problem too. That's it.
I can answer just one real quick on that. The city is, when people are renewing licenses, at least in Mission Beach area, they are checking the zoning and the address against any ADU development. So they're just starting to renew with them from 2 years ago. They are checking that because they're not.
Point of clarification, what's a VRBO?
VRBO, vacation rental by owner.
Okay.
No.
Hey, not to be redundant, I'm just gonna agree with everybody. Quality land use and planning, we need to get back to quality if we want to get something decent to the next generation or the generation after. Parking setbacks, infrastructure, even insurance. I mean, are these projects even being insured? I heard last year on transactional, 10% of all real estate transactions were canceled due to lack of insurance. But what I would like to get out today, I'll try to explain it properly and quickly. CAL FIRE sets the guidelines for fire safety, that's my understanding. And the municipalities are allowed to adopt it or carve out certain aspects of CAL FIRE's regulatory presence. So I would try to do an analysis to figure out what we're carving out in San Diego and stop carving it out and try to follow the more stringent guidelines with CAL FIRE. That would be really awesome in my mind. And then as far as someone mentioned about, some state rules versus local rules, it's tricky. I mean, it's tricky, and here's a quick analogy, and I hate to spread bad rumors, but it's subject to revision. They're changing things all the time, but here's a hypothetical analogy. A 210 5-acre planned unit development or condo complex, based on certain AB rules, allegedly based on some seminars I sat through in the last year or so. They can build ADUs in the common area of your condo or your planned unit development complex. If the board decided to, they can violate the CC&Rs according to what we were told in this seminar. And that comes down, I think, from the state. It's hearsay based on a seminar, so you'll have to do your homework to make sure. But my point being is the city has their police powers on what they can enforce. So again, they might be able to carve out certain things with respect to ADUs and affordable housing to get to quality. And so I think a study needs to be done. And it's hard. I will be the first to tell you, to try to analyze what the state's doing with their AB bills and affordable housing and ADUs. But if the city at our level can do an analysis to figure out what's going on between the state and the city and our police powers and how we enforce this, and figure out how we can carve certain things out. I hope everybody has a great evening.
Gosh, listening to everybody, my mind is like, yeah. I think that it just needs to be scrapped and started over. I like your idea, Eastern, about going back to state. What does the state do? Do the state requirements at this point? Even that needs an overhaul. But, digging down deep in this, we're the same as Rancho Bernardo fire codes. We pushed the mayor's office and council members to get the 4-foot required setback. That is the state code for setbacks, because we're in a very high fire severity district. And it sounds like the mayor said they're going to do that. I'm not seeing that. Other situations that have come out of this is I started looking at zoning, because I kept seeing all these zones going, what do these zones mean exactly? And looking at Scripps Ranch in particular, so speaking to our area, the primary zones are RM 1-1 and RS 1-13, which are radically different. However, some of them are mixed right into each other, even though the neighborhoods are identically, they're HOAs in particular. And there are no mixed, it's not mixed in these areas. So these are probably areas that were zoned before they were put in to have mixed use or have the multifamily, but then it wasn't, the developer didn't put them in. But they didn't rezone it back to single family. So now there's all these loopholes within all these HOAs and things like that allow somebody that happens to be in the brown zone here to be able to do something that their neighbor right across the street with the exact identical home can't do, because they're in an RM 1-1 versus a RS 1-13 in the same neighborhood. So this goes back deep. There's so many loopholes that can be done with these municipal codes and with the ADUs. I just think it's complicated. I think it's a great idea to go right back to, let's go with what the state says. And then we need to look at our zoning. How are these maps done? And do these need to be updated so they actually fit the communities that they're in? So there's a number of things, like everybody else has said, the DIF fees, that goes into a fund by the city. So anything that is created or built in Scripps Ranch, that's not going to be put back into Scripps Ranch. That's going into a different community, likely. So go back to where the building is being done. Those DIF fees belong to that community. There's many things that have just gone to pot over the last 5 years, honestly. So I could say a ton more, but let's go. Your turn.
Kensington Talmadge?
So absolutely, we need a subcommittee to look at this in depth and report back to the CBC. As Scripps Ranch just said, in my neighborhood, RM11 zoning meanders through the neighborhood, cheek by jowl with the RS17. It is a significant issue. I don't know how we resolve that. As Torrey Hill said, as ADUs were sold, Torrey Pines, I'm sorry.
Don't confuse Marlon and
Yes, we are.
As Torrey Pines, I was looking at Torrey Pines down there on the floor. As Torrey Pines, ADUs were sold to us as granny flats in the backyard that looked all neighborhood. As you can see up on the screen, developments in height in the allowable building area. Significance, people. That is already how the ADU works today. I'm shocked actually that they're trying to sell that as a concession. High fire hazard zones. The state maps just came out today, and I know in my part of the city, the very high fire hazard zones were reduced by 50 to 70%. So that just became a much less significant factor in all of this, whether these news maps are accurate or not. And finally, Mission Beach, you got hit with the short-term vacation rentals. I think you have a claim to be excused from the ADU or take back the short-term vacation rental hit you had to take.
Well, it's a matter of density and traffic flow. Either way.
Thank you.
I guess I apologize to everybody else who has had bad experience with the ADUs or the 10 units popping up on the small lot. Personally, within a block of my house, I have 3 new projects that have come up that are nice, nice projects that are fitting. They're not causing issues with parking, and it does seem to be helping. I work in commercial real estate, and I know that the development services is terrible to work with. Nobody wants to pull permits for anything. So I don't know. I mean, if the idea is that we need to help create more housing in one way or another, just scrapping everything, I don't think it's gonna help. So, and this committee, this group needs to have some good ideas, but I just don't know what's gonna solve the problem.
Thank you. Chair Santa, I'm gonna jump to you.
All right, so we are gonna agree with almost everything. We think that taking it back to the state level and then reworking this to make it more, I think makes the most sense. Our main concern is the extremely high wildfire areas and the evacuation routes. So I'm not gonna take a lot of time because I'm not gonna add any value to this, but yes.
Thank you. Uptown?
So I think everything's been pretty well spoken here today. I'm on both sides of the fence. I don't think there's a house in my neighborhood that doesn't have an ADU in the backyard. I think they're a valuable source of housing in San Diego, and compared to putting a 15-story high-rise on the edge of a canyon in a small single-family neighborhood, I think they are vastly superior to that option. I think we should commend the city for bringing this up and revisiting it and making these significant changes. We're all, pissed off that they set them up in the first place. I think they're far too liberal. I think they need to go back to the states and then scale from there for the city. Every neighborhood is different, so I think every neighborhood maybe needs its own set of plans. Poway has bigger lots, and most of the lots in Mission Beach or Pacific Beach are like 3,000 square feet. So I think it's too restricting to put too many of these Airbnbs on there, or ADUs on there, whatever they end up being. So I want to commend the city for revisiting it, but I think there is a lot of work to do.
That's for sure.
Thank you. Golden Hill?
Going to echo a lot of what's been said about the opt-in fee versus the diff fee. For me, it's hard to wrap my head around how the city's reconciling the budget crisis with the waiver for the first two ADUs with the opt-in fees, especially as I watch a lot of parks go kind of neglected. League fees, field fees double, parking fees double. City's looking for money, and yet it's leaving some on the table. As we approach the city attorney's office with these opt-in fee options, is there data that would support the idea it's going to raise more than the opt-in fees other communities propose? And if there is, can it just be included in that the city to have that be part of this program, is these opt-in fees for larger developments?
Great. Downtown?
Two quick comments. Thanks. I appreciate all this input. First comment is regarding whether we want to go to a state level or a local level. Had some interesting discussions with various people last week or two, and the interest is making sure that we have an opportunity to separate residential concerns versus commercial concerns. And sometimes we find ourselves with commercial and the dollars overpowering a resident, and I think that's where we lose a lot of opportunity. And by surrendering to the state is not necessarily going to give the residents back what they want. So I think we need some caution. My other comment is regarding diff fees. So the diff fees is kind of like budget surpluses. So they make a rule when we're in a budget surplus situation where there's too much diff fee and they need to use it up. So they say, okay, well, we'll distribute it more fairly, which was good for a period of time. But now we're in a situation where there's not a lot of money floating around. And so we need to pull it back in-house. So I think thinking things through, like a diff fee, needs to be done on a long-term basis with the ability to pull back and change your mind. We don't have to need monumental changes every year that take forever to change. Thank you.
San Ysidro?
I think the concern about the parking is something that we see in San Ysidro a lot. Also being transparent, I feel like I need to learn a little more about all these issues. So if y'all recommend something to learn a little more and move on further with these terms, I will really appreciate it.
Yeah. Ladies, anything to add?
Can I see that the parking is the same problem in San Isidro to all San Diego? So can I see too that we have the same problem? We need to work together or be in the same page to make the difference or change this situation, because it's crazy. So thank you.
It's nice to see everybody's struggling with the same problems all around. We're here. We're thankful to be here.
So I'll remind people that we're talking about, the specific proposal and the specific letter that we have is talking about bonus ADUs, not regular ADUs, and the issues that we have with the current ADU program, the state of California, and so on and so forth. So this is a narrower focus if we want to actually address the item that we're talking about here. I want to make a note that Heidi von Bloom's proposed excluding bonus ADUs in all RS zones, but RS 17, or it made an enumerated list of the RS zones that she would propose excluding those things, without reference to why the others should be excluded as well. In particular, Jeff's slide showed the RS 17 as being a source of a significant number of ADUs in the program. He recommended that the RS zones as a totality be excluded from the program. And I think that's a perfectly reasonable way of going about it. And Heidi von Bloom's letter did not address any equity issues she didn't say, well, the reason you can't have RS1, you can't have RS 17, but you can have RS 11 and RS 2 and so on and so forth, is because just said, well, the usual language. So I think there is a way of kind of working that in particular. Now, the mayor's office probably won't support this. They're very loath to make concessions, which they look at to single family zones, but doesn't mean it can't happen. So that's my comments.
Thank you. Okay, Oh, hi, Sarah Mesa. Yeah, you want to come?
There's a little right up there, I guess.
Okay, well, there's Marlon. Yeah, right there.
Next to me.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
mind.
Yeah, so we can hear you because we are streaming. Yeah, that's okay. We're glad you're here.
We're just sleepy little families, so we're a little underinformed about these things. But I guess just two questions. So the whole idea behind this letter is to try and reduce the total number of units that would appear on any given single family lot, right? Because it's getting a little out of control. So one, I saw somewhere in there was a comment or a bullet point about matching to multifamily on-site parking requirements. Would those be sufficiently high enough to reduce the total number of possible units on a single family lot to something that's reasonable? Is the first question. And then second question, have unit limits in general been considered, just to say, a lot in this kind of a zone should be capped at X number of units regardless of all the other levers that you can pull for this other code? So just those two questions.
Yeah, I think it's right now it's just by FAR, so not necessarily number of units. That's the only answer. I don't know the other answer about the matching parking requirements. Because I think every other zone, it's different per bedroom. Like you need half a parking spot per bedroom. And then based on the RM zone, it's just a different where you are, like if you're in a parking impact zone. So it's, I don't know. It's too variable for me to be able to give that data. But good questions. Okay. So I would be happy to form the subcommittee. I just want to write this letter sooner rather than later if June is the deadline, because I want to meet with I want to meet with the council members. I know for a fact that I could probably get meetings with at least 3 people, and they've been very receptive and open to what I've had to say about ADUs.
I don't see why the subcommittee couldn't report back in a month.
In a month? Okay, yeah, great. Okay, that's fine with me. The points, I'm gonna say some crazy stuff, I think. The ones I really want to include in this is definitely longer deed restrictions. I agree with the public comment that said 10 years was too short. You should not be getting any bonuses without, a 25. I think the standard is 50 for apartments, like a 50-year, 55. I don't understand why that should be any lower. Doesn't make sense to me. And I think, if you're going to restrict it, you should maybe only get your bonuses if we're trying to incentivize if you do deed restrictions that long. If the city gives us a little pushback on, no, we want to keep it 10, then we could be like, oh, don't give the bonuses unless they want to do longer restrictions. I would say point blank, ADUs cannot be smaller than 750 feet. That way everyone has to pay a diff fee. I would only say JADUs can be smaller, which are the attached or above garage ADUs. But anything that's being permitted as an ADU has to be at least 750 feet. So that way we're collecting diff fees no matter what. And then because in my view, if we do require diff fees for everything over 750 feet, it's just going to be a race to the bottom. And we're going to get these tiny, tiny, tiny little box ADUs. I'm disappointed that Claremont and College aren't here because apparently they're the ones who have been seeing the most ADUs. So I'm bummed we didn't get their perspective.
They're bummed. Well, College is bummed by ADUs.
Yeah, they're bummed out. For some reason, it feels like the mayor's office and planning were on the same page about the FAR only counting towards developable lands in the lot. So I definitely want to see that in the letter. I don't think if you have an ADU on your property that has gone through this program, you should be able to use any part of your property for a short-term vacation rental because people are just making an ADU in the back, moving into it and renting out their house, which is not adding to the housing stock. That's a net zero.
Yeah, exactly.
So I want to get rid of that. One parking spot for ADUs per ADU, I think is fair. And then, so this is, don't be mad at me, but I think ADUs should be allowed to be sold and as an incentive for people.
You would.
I think it would be a
I think you can do like a.
I just don't see how all the apartments are not being added online because of the builder's remedy at the state level. And I don't think ADUs have to go through that same builder's remedy. And I think this is a way to get more housing online that'll be for sale. Because right now, all our density bonuses are just wealth capture for developers and landlords because no one has a chance to buy anything. I care about lowering rent. I do, but I also care about having starter homes for sale because I'm pretty sure more people want to own their home than they want to rent forever. And if we just continue to churn out rent for life units, we're never going to put people on that ladder to home ownership to build equity. So the most important thing for me is making sure that when these ADUs are coming online, that a lot of them are going for sale.
And no one's gonna buy one if there's nowhere to park the car.
Yeah, I think we should also consider saying that this should be community oriented too. I think the communities are diverse enough that there should be certain restrictions for certain communities based on the community desires and needs. Being in Scripps Ranch, we don't have mobility, we don't have the buses and that, but if they say, oh, we're gonna plan a bus stop over here, then all of a sudden, we are lumped into that without actually having that bus stop.
Yep.
So mobility is completely different in the Scripps Ranch area in particular than many other parts of the city. So there should be some community, if we're throwing all this together and saying, well, we've got to have this and we have to have this, there needs to be some community input that it's not one fair game for everybody, because it isn't. Communities are very diverse. And so we need to have some things that are thrown in there based on the community itself and what the community has for their resources. And like Scripps Ranch doesn't have public transportation, none.
So I guess what would that look like outside of just the TPAs? Would we have to make different districts? I'm just wondering, how that implementation would work. Because I agree.
Are you saying condoizing or are you looking at lot line adjustments?
I think it would be a map waiver. Yes. So.
They're doing that in North Park now, that there are two houses.
Will lenders lend on something.
Two houses.
When lenders lend on them that way.
I don't know, I'm not a bank.
But if you're looking for home ownership.
Right.
You're gonna want to understand.
Well, they're doing that in North Park now, and it's two houses built on a smaller lot.
Mhm.
But I can tell you, the prices in North Park, you still can't afford them.
Which is crazy. No offense to
There's
North
there's a
Park.
house that's got 2 bedrooms, maybe 2.5 bedrooms, off the alleyway from where I live, and it went for close to $1 million.
Since we're swinging
In
for
New
the
York.
fences, can we swing for some review, some community review? I mean, this 30-day ministerial approval is one of the most ridiculous things. We find when we used to see projects, all kinds of mistakes, all kinds of errors. When we have a 1004 Rosecrans, there's problems with a gas station being there and the groundwater and nobody's seen that at the city. Is there any way to include that the committee could look at that, maybe?
Yeah, sure.
I'd like
Yeah,
to,
Paul.
I'd like to follow on to that comment that the developer in our neighborhood that was going to do City Communities projects lost $11 million. And now we have just a chain link fence and no project. Because the city lied to him and he proceeded on fallacious information.
Yeah, exactly. So we find a lot of mistakes.
I do think your comment about being able to buy, or to possibly sell is a good one, because so many of the comments that were pro ADUs at the city council meeting were people saying, because they want to be able to buy something, so they obviously weren't familiar with the ADU where it's just rentals. So that would give a lot more people a chance. So that might be something to definitely consider in the mix.
Yeah. So is everyone okay with forming an ad hoc committee? And, okay, do I have people who want to be on the ad hoc committee? Everyone. Let me go. Marcel? Yeah, okay.
I'd like to nominate Javier Saunders from Peninsula because I think he's going to be our rep for the coming year.
I got Skylar.
You know, in this discussion tonight and on the radio and TV and the newspaper, you know what's been missing that we've had in my neighborhood forever and ever is garage conversions. Garage conversions. Mission Hills has had garage conversions, you know, from the 1930s, and some of them were really very cute. So we want to talk about affordable renting garage conversions, which doesn't change the footprint of the house.
They can be part of the ADU mix.
What's that?
They can be part of the ADU mix.
That would be called a
Yeah,
J.
Paul does it.
That's a JADU.
Well, I'm talking about.
It's bigger.
I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
But that's, yeah.
All right, can we get back to one conversation? Thank you. Okay, I have Linda Vista, I have Pacific, I have Carmel Valley, I have Scripps Ranch, I have Kensington, I have San Ysidro, I have Peninsula, I have University, I have Jeff, and I have Encanto. Okay.
Can we get back to you?
Oh, yeah.
Waiting for you.
Sure. Okay. Does anyone want to step up? All right, I'll put you guys on an email chain, and then I would love it if we could get this back by next month so we can vote on it. I can take that show on the road. As I said, I have good relationships with D1, D2, and D6. I'm going to literally go around right now. Does anyone have a good relationship with someone on D3 staff, and could you give me their name? Because I'm just going to go through all the council offices I've never heard back from ever once since I've been sending out these letters. Yeah, D3 is Whitburn.
Yes.
Okay, so Bob, you can put me in touch with someone who will email me back.
Yep.
Okay, D3, D4.
Bob?
Do you have a good relationship with any? D5. Who has a good, okay, awesome. Okay, I have a good relationship with D6. D7.
D7.
Okay. And this D8. Seems to be awesome. Thank you guys. And then D9. Who has a good relationship with someone on staff?
Someone does.
Okay, D9. Awesome. Normal Heights. Okay. So I will, I'll ask for the staff name. I'll CC you guys because I've been sending them mostly to chiefs of staff. So if I don't have a good relationship with the chief of staff, they're just not emailing me back. Even once I do have good relationships with them. All right, cool. So hopefully we'll get more meetings this time and, spare some votes.
I can help with D106 or something.
Okay. Yeah, awesome. Okay, Marlon, you're up.
All right. Okay. Hi, everybody. I want to give everybody a preview presentation. We've got another initiative that I want to put on your radar. So like I mentioned before, even last month, that I'm going to be providing these preview presentations for a lot of initiatives that we're working on. And then later on, the actual project team will be coming to CPC and providing a more detailed presentation with more information. So I'm going to be talking about the Preservation in Progress Initiative. And what this is a comprehensive update to the city's heritage preservation program. This initiative will streamline approval processes for new homes. Last year, City Planning launched the Preservation in Progress website, providing an overview of its goals and values. The site also features an online portal where the public can submit ideas for consideration. At the end of 2024, Heritage Preservation staff conducted a benchmarking study to assess how San Diego's Heritage Preservation Program compares to others nationwide. The study examined 4 things. 1, Preservation Board and Commission structure and authority. 2, designation processes, criteria, and historic resource inventory size. 3, regulation methods, including review processes and applied standards. And 4, incentive programs supporting historic preservation. A full benchmarking report with detailed findings will be released in the coming weeks. City staff has gathered, let's get all this stuff. Has gathered input from benchmarking studies, public feedback, discussions with the California Office of Historic Preservation to shape potential updates to the Heritage Preservation Program. Staff has grouped proposed updates into Package A and Package B. These updates are preliminary and ongoing feedback is encouraged. In Package A, which is targeted for completion by the end of 2025, includes updates to the city's Mills Act program, which can provide a property tax reduction in exchange for maintenance and restoration of the resource, minor updates to the historic preservation element of the general plan, updates to the designation appeal process, and streamlining the process for adaptive reuse of historic resources. Package B, and I'm going to give you this presentation, by the way. Package B, targeted for completion in summer 2026, includes more complex updates or those requiring extensive environmental analysis. Some of the updates included in Package B include updates to the historical resources regulations and guidelines, developing objective design standards for historic districts with a focus on ADU homes, amending the city's historic designation criteria and guidelines, and amending the potential historic resource review to shift from reactive preservation efforts to proactive preservation efforts, such as the designation of historic districts. Here's a quick overview of the initiative timeline. As outlined in previous slides, the initiative will progress in 2 phases. Package A will be developed over the next several months with a target of City Council adoption by the end of this year. The more complex items in Package B is targeted for City Council adoption by summer 2026. Heritage Preservation staff presented an overview of the amendments proposed under Preservation in Progress to the Land Use and Housing Committee of the City Council at their March meeting. The staff report and video recording for that presentation are available on the city's website for those interested in learning more. You can also visit the Preservation in Progress website for more information, as well as opportunities to provide input and sign up for future communications. And that concludes my presentation.
They're not trying to change the boundary lines for any existing historical neighborhoods, are they?
No, I don't think so. This is for just projects coming through in the review
Okay,
process.
okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Yep.
Does this affect archaeological resources at all, or just?
Let me ask, that's a detailed question, because usually archaeological and paleontological stuff is a little separate than the actual historic and cultural element of a development. Yeah, let me ask about that.
And where you brought up paleontological, and I always see that sneaking into the code changes, and that should be protected, so hopefully we'll see about that.
Okay.
Anyone else? Jeff?
So, one thing to think about with preservation and progress is what role can community planning groups play in this? And I know parts of the city don't really think in terms of this, but there's a couple of things. One is the 45-year review and the surveying aspect of this. That's always highlighted as a big point of contention with all historic preservation. If we did all our resources, it would create certainty around what can be developed and what cannot be developed, so that we don't get all the way to an approval process and then there's a street fight over it. So that would be something that you guys could get involved with. And with regard to 45-year review, staff complains again and again and again that this is what they spend all their time on. If the community planning groups pre-screened all those 45-year reviews, I think that workload would go way down to almost nothing. Thanks.
Yeah, David?
I just want to
Kensington
second what
Talmadge.
Jeff said, because the historic districts are the best form of historic preservation. There you get substantive historic preservation and not just little single properties sitting all alone, surrounded by redevelopment. And as Jeff said, it provides certainty for the developers. It's something I've been involved in historic preservation going back to 2008, and it became quickly obvious to me that individual designation was a mistake and historic way to go for both developers and for preservation.
Anyone else? Any other comments for more staff? Okay, great.
We will, yeah.
Can I give you guys a couple more updates from
Yeah,
different things
staff
too?
report, go for
Sure.
it.
For all of you that use the traffic service request forms online, there's been an update to that. The city's transportation department recently updated the online traffic service request form to only include requests to evaluate the following new traffic infrastructure. New curb color painting, that's red, yellow, white, green, blue. Note that there's a fee required with that. New safety-related signage such as stop signs, yield signs, and one-way signs. New striping such as crosswalks and stop bars. New traffic calming measures such as speed bumps and traffic circles. This change reduces the services that can be requested for an evaluation. Due to budget constraints, the Transportation Department is suspending requests for new streetlights, sidewalks, bike facilities, guardrails, and non-safety related signage. The Transportation Department does not have the resources, staffing, or equipment to perform these evaluations or install new traffic infrastructure. So requests for evaluations of the new infrastructure, detailed as I mentioned, can be submitted. I have a website here and I could forward that to Andrea to send to all of you.
Please.
Well, hold on, I got some more updates.
Well, Marlon, could you again just say those that are no longer, just real quick, that you ran through?
Form to only, okay, due to the budget constraints, the suspension request would relate to new streetlights, sidewalks, traffic signals, bike facilities, guardrails, and non.
Can you send it to us?
Yeah, definitely. And I've got the links too. A couple more things here regarding open space and habitat land acquisition for a lot of folks who like the green open space stuff. The city recently received a 53-acre land donation from the nonprofit Mission Trails Regional Park Foundation, expanding protected open space within the park. This land will be preserved as part of the Multiple Species Conservation Program, protecting native plants and wildlife and critical habitats. University Community Plan update went to Coastal Commission, well, submitted for Coastal Commission. Otay Mesa, Nestor, and Rancho Bernardo Community Plan updates, which are next up. We're looking at reviewing funding opportunities for those efforts. Planning group training. I will be putting that together. We'll be having that somewhere around the end of May. Everybody is supposed to take the training, new and current members. More information on that. Please get the rosters to me regarding your new planning group boards.
Will that be live?
It will be live, but it will be online. And if you can't attend online, we've got something for you to take on your
The way
own.
we used to do it, coffee and donuts.
Coffee and donuts.
Budget cuts.
I remember the golden times, guy. I do. I've been around a while. I remember those. Let's see, extreme heat action plan. I don't know if we mentioned this before, but the city received funding to complete an extreme heat action plan through the state's Extreme Heat and Community Resilience Grant. The grant will be completed in partnership with the San Diego Regional Climate Collaborative and Scripps Institute for Oceanography, as well as the cities of Chula Vista and La Mesa. Work is anticipated to kick off this spring. College area, they're not here, but there's a second draft that's out. Coastal Resilience Master Plan. If you remember, we had Julia from our department talk about the Coastal Resilience Master Plan. An updated draft of the Coastal Resilience Master Plan is a site that incorporates feedback received during the public review. The master plan will be moving forward to public hearings this spring, starting with the Resiliency Advisory Board at their April 17th meeting. The plan will then be heard for consideration at the Environmental Committee at City Council, and then City Council, I'm sorry. Claremont, I know the Claremont folks aren't here, but a second draft is supposed to come out in the summer. And that concludes my really quick reports.
So thank you. Yes, you have a question?
Oh, Doreen.
Yeah.
I have a question about your preservation. Now, I have sent at least probably 36 or more emails about all the wrong maps that the city of San Diego is using. Every single interactive map is wrong for District 4. They are parts of Lemon Grove, parts of San Diego labeled as Lemon Grove, which I just recently finally got fixed after 14 months. So I'm wondering, how can you do preservation when you don't even know the San Diego city boundary versus Lemon Grove versus Cressa? To me, it makes it hard for you to do any of this stuff without those maps. So I would say when you move forward, maybe consider actually knowing the area that you're going to be talking about with accurate maps. District 4 finally has the accurate map, but everywhere else is Sandad, August, they're all using wrong maps. So we should know where San Diego is before we start doing things. We should know where it is. Just a suggestion.
Thank you. I saw Paul.
In regards to the donation of open space, I want to just keep an eye on how that's going to influence Park Point's open space. I don't want to see more open space being designated as parkland.
It's MSCP, so.
It's
We'll be looking at the numbers.
Yeah.
Paul, do you say you do or do not want more?
I want to see accurate numbers come through. If it's open space, designated as open space, and not janky for being park points.
But you can still get points for having the trail run through it.
Sure, that's legit.
Laura, East Marion.
Marlon, I think you said something about bike facilities aren't going to be funded. What do you mean by bike facilities? What's the definition of that?
Oh, I didn't say it was not going to be funded. It wasn't going to be evaluated as part of transportation's kind of request to take a look at certain improvements.
So there's not going to be any studies for the time being?
Well, if there are any requests to look at it, they wouldn't, but anything like coming out of, say, the bicycle master plan or anything that has been funded through some CIP, they would go ahead and do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, you way in the back.
I just had a question about the sidewalks that you were talking about are no longer going to be funded as well, is that correct?
No, I didn't say they weren't going to be funded. It's that transportation staff is not going to be going out there and analyzing for sidewalks under this request form.
Okay, so me being an example and having two giant lots next to me that I have kids going to use going in too far away from, 1.2 miles from the highway, with no sidewalks, no storm drains, and country lanes. I'm just wondering who's gonna be in charge of getting sidewalks put in there, or nobody?
Well, we would have to see whether or not there's a CIP project that needs to be completely funded in order for that to be implemented. So that's something we would need to look at. If you give me a specific location, we can look that up and then see if there's a CIP project.
Right now there isn't one, and so this is our, previous conversation about one of the issues is that our country lanes that have no storm drains, no sidewalks, no nothing, are supposed to hold parking and then have a fire truck, a trash truck, an ambulance come through. I mean, to imagine what that looks like, it hasn't happened yet, but it's happening. We spoke to developers last week that are coming in, so we're very concerned in our neighborhood about this, but also about sidewalks.
Got it, thanks.
Thank you.
Any other comments for staff before I move to chair reports? Guy?
Yes, I think the planning department should come up with a tutorial, and that the planners assigned to each committee would do a 15-minute presentation on urban planning for people who don't know a damn thing about urban planning, except that, you know, my neighborhood should look better or whatever, and teach us exactly what's involved in the process, okay? The skills that we did not inherit. I went to San Diego State to get the textbook for introductory course to urban planning. There is no textbook at San Diego State.
Well, that's how it is now when you go to college. I know.
Well, I'm just saying, you know, the course is taught there, but they do not use a textbook.
That's how it is now.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I really believe that we need to get into exactly what urban planning is and what we can expect for it, and how far, my personal opinion, how far we have deviated from it.
I wonder if we could have somebody come to speak. I mean, we have urban planning schools in San Diego with USD, UCSD, San Diego State. Couldn't you think we could get somebody to come and speak at a meeting, like from them?
Maybe, yeah. I can reach out.
Well,
We might not do it if we're not paying them.
And sarcastically, we would like city planning to actually do some planning of the city, not just what a developer wants to give us. I mean, that's how I feel like I feel like it's developer driven and not really a plan anymore. It used to be a plan, like the city and villages or whatever, and now it's kind of, and I think Marlon, you do a great job, and I think you guys try to do a great job, but I kind of feel like, we've been overrun, yeah.
Great. Okay, so for next month, we will see the street design manual, as well as trash, and then hopefully a letter about ADUs. They just had to push the street design manual back a month because they were incorporating feedback that they received during the public comment period. So I'm not going to ever be mad at them about that. We'll also need to form, or one or two people need to solicit names for the chair, vice chair, and secretary positions. We'll elect that in May. So we'll, take names the next month and then present the names, and then I think then we have a vote after that. Let me refresh the bylaws. So if you're interested, or start thinking about if you're interested or not, I will not be running for chair for a third. I just completed my third term. That's a long time for one person to be chair. So I think plenty of you are competent.
I second the motion not to accept that.
And then finally, Padres season starts on Thursday. Yes. Yeah. If anyone did write a trash letter and you want to send it and you want to send it to me, I can send it out with the agenda next month. Is there anyone whose last meeting this is? If you're